You plant potatoes? Everybody plants potatoes. You hill them, you water them, you fight the beetles, you dig them up in September, and you get maybe 2 pounds per plant if nothing went wrong. Then you do it again next year, and the year after that. Nobody asks whether there's something better, because potatoes are the default. The grocery store sells potatoes. The seed catalog leads with potatoes. The extension office recommends potatoes. But here's what the supply chain doesn't want you thinking about. Potatoes won the 20th century because they ship well in trucks. That's it. They're firm, they don't bruise easily, and they stack in boxes. The roots we're covering today don't do any of that. They bruise, they oxidize, they look weird in plastic packaging. And that's exactly why the commercial system pretends they don't exist. Some of these yield 20, even 30 pounds from a single plant. Some fix their own nitrogen. Some have triple the protein or double the vitamin C of potatoes. You haven't heard of most of them for the same reason you've never seen a fresh pawpaw at Walmart. The infrastructure wasn't built for them. Today I'm giving you 7 root crops that outperform potatoes on nearly every metric that actually matters to a home grower. This is the 3rd layer. We covered weeds on the surface. We covered trees in the canopy. Now we're going underground. Number 1. Yacon, the root that makes potatoes look stingy. Yacon is an Andean sunflower relative that produces massive, sweet, crunchy tubers underground while its leafy stalks reach 6 feet tall above. A single Yacon plant, in good conditions, yields 20 to 30 pounds of tubers. Let that register. One plant, 20 to 30 pounds. A potato plant gives you 2, maybe 3. Yacon doesn't even need particularly good soil. It wants moisture and a long, frost-free season, but it's not fussy about fertility. The tubers taste like a cross between a pear and a jicama, crisp and sweet, and they're mostly fructooligosaccharides rather than starch. That means the sweetness passes through your body largely undigested. Diabetics in South America have been eating Yacon for exactly this reason for centuries. You can eat it raw, sliced into salads, or cooked down into a syrup that rivals maple. The reason you've never seen Yacon at a grocery store is simple. The tubers bruise like a ripe peach. They oxidize within hours of cutting. No shelf life, no shipping, no profit margin. But for a home grower with 10 square feet of bed space, it's one of the highest yielding food plants on the planet. If you've been paying attention to calories per square foot math, Yacon breaks the spreadsheet. Number 2, Mashua, the climbing tuber that grows 10 feet in a season. Mashua is a nasturtium, relative from the high Andes that most North American gardeners have never heard of. And that's a shame, because it might be the most productive tuber crop per unit of effort on Earth. Under research conditions in Peru, Mashua has hit 70 tons per hectare. For reference, a strong potato harvest is 40. A single plant can give you 5 pounds of tubers on an average year, with exceptional plants pushing past 16. The vines are vigorous and aggressive. Give Mashua a trellis and it will climb 8 to 12 feet in one growing season, smothering weeds along the way. It contains glucosinolates, the same compounds found in mustard and horseradish, which give the raw tubers a peppery bite and make them naturally resistant to most pests and diseases. Cooking mellows the flavor into something closer to a nutty turnip. The nutritional profile is remarkable. Protein content in the dry weight runs 6 to 15%, and the purple skin varieties contain iron levels that dwarf most root crops. Mashua thrives in cool, wet conditions and poor soil. It was bred for Andean mountainsides at 10,000 feet, not for flatland industrial farms. That's why commercial agriculture never bothered with it. Your backyard is not a commercial farm. Think accordingly. Number 3, Groundnut, the nitrogen-fixing tuber that was here before the colonizers. Apios americana is a native North American vine that produces strings of small, protein-dense tubers underground while its roots pull nitrogen straight from the atmosphere. Read that again. It makes its own fertilizer. Most root crops drain the soil. Groundnut improves it. The tubers contain roughly 3 times the protein of potatoes, around 11 to 14% by dry weight. They taste like a nuttier, earthier potato with a hint of roasted turnip, and they're excellent fried, roasted, or added to stews. Indigenous peoples across the eastern woodlands cultivated groundnut for thousands of years. When the Pilgrims were starving at Plymouth, it was groundnut that got them through the first winters, a fact conveniently forgotten by most history books. The vine grows 8 to 12 feet, produces attractive clusters of burgundy flowers, and is perennial through Zone 3. Leave the tubers in the ground and they come back larger the next year. Research at Louisiana State University has developed improved cultivars yielding over 5 pounds per plant after 2 seasons. Groundnut is the only common North American tuber crop that fixes nitrogen. That single trait makes it more valuable to a permaculture system than any amount of potatoes. The potato feeds you. Groundnut feeds you and feeds the soil you grow it in. Number 4. Oke, the Andean potato rival with a built-in flavor switch. Oke is the second most widely grown tuber crop in the Andes, right behind the potato itself. In Bolivia and Peru, it's not exotic. It's Tuesday dinner. The tubers come in a riot of colors: red, orange, yellow, pink, and they contain roughly twice the vitamin C and calcium of potatoes. Here's what makes oca fascinating for a grower. The flavor changes after harvest. Freshly dug, the tubers are tart and tangy from oxalic acid, similar to sorrel. Leave them in the sun for a few days and the acid converts to sugar. You can literally tune the flavor by controlling sun exposure. Yields average about a pound per plant in temperate climates. But there's a trick most guides won't tell you. Oca forms tubers along any stem that touches soil. Bury the sprawling stems as they grow, the same way you'd hill potatoes, and you can triple your yield. The plant needs short days to trigger tuberization, less than 12 hours of light, which means in northern latitudes it starts forming tubers in the fall. A long, mild autumn is your best friend. Oca grows happily in poor acidic soil down to pH 5/3 and needs almost no inputs. Grocery stores will never stock it because the tubers are small, oddly shaped, and bruise on contact. For a home grower who doesn't care about cosmetic perfection, oca is a superior crop in almost every nutritional metric. Number 5. Skirret, the medieval sugar root that Europe forgot. Before sugar beets and cane, sugar conquered the Western world. Europeans had skirret. It was a staple of monastery gardens and royal kitchens from the Roman era through the Renaissance. Then cheap sugar arrived from the colonies, and skirret vanished from the collective memory almost overnight. The plant produces a cluster of white, finger-length roots that taste unmistakably sweet, like a parsnip crossed with a carrot but with a clean, sugary finish. It was literally called the sugar root in German, Zuckerwurzel. Skirret is a perennial, planted once, and it comes back every year, producing larger root clusters as the crown matures. A second-year plant yields about a pound of roots. By year 3 and beyond, you're harvesting more than that without replanting. It thrives in rich, moist soil and tolerates partial shade, making it ideal for forest garden understory plantings. The roots are best harvested in late fall after frost sweetens them, just like parsnips. Skirret is hardy to zone 5 at minimum, possibly colder. The reason this crop disappeared is instructive. It couldn't compete with refined sugar on price, and the roots are too thin and irregular for mechanical harvesting. Industrial agriculture selected it out, but you're not running an industrial operation. You're growing food. Skirret asked for almost nothing and returned sweetness year after year without replanting. The monks knew what they were doing. Number 6. Chufa, the tiger nut that makes its own oil and milk. Chufa is a cultivated sedge, a type of grass-like plant that produces marble-sized tubers just below the soil surface. If you've ever had horchata de chufa in Spain, you've already tasted it. That creamy, sweet, almond milk-like drink is made entirely from tiger nuts. The tubers contain 22 to 45% fat, mostly heart-healthy oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat that gives olive oil its reputation. They're also rich in fiber, with 8 to 15%, and contain meaningful protein. This is not a starchy root. This is a fat and fiber crop. That makes Chufa almost unique among tuber plants. Spain produces about 10,000 tons annually for the horchata industry, and yields under cultivation average 10 to 19 tons per hectare. The plants grow about 2 feet tall, look like ordinary grass, and produce tubers in just 4 to 5 months. They thrive in sandy, well-drained soil and tolerate drought once established. Here's the part most people miss. You can press tiger nuts for oil, blend them for milk, dry and grind them for flour, or eat them raw as a crunchy snack. 4 products from one no-maintenance crop. The wild form of this plant, yellow nut sedge, is considered one of the world's worst agricultural weeds. The cultivated variety channels all that aggressive energy into tuber production. It wants to grow. Your job is mostly to stay out of its way. Number 7. Chinese artichoke, the tiny tuber too delicate for the modern world. Stachys affinis, also called Crosne, produces small, white, segmented tubers that look like fat, spiraling grubs. They're 2 to 3 inches long, no more than half an inch wide, and they taste like a mild, nutty water chestnut with a satisfying crunch. In French haute cuisine, Crosnes are a delicacy. Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris serve them sautéed in butter alongside winter dishes. They command premium prices at specialty markets when you can find them at all. The reason they're almost impossible to buy is the same reason they're perfect for a home garden. The tubers have skin so thin they begin drying out within days of harvest. No cold storage, no shipping, no shelf life. You dig them, you eat them that day. Growing them is almost comically easy. Plant the tubers in spring, water occasionally, and forget about them until fall. The plant is a mint relative and spreads with the same quiet determination. Yields are modest, 1/4 to 1/2 pound per plant, but the plants multiply freely. Leave a few tubers in the ground and next year's crop plants itself. Hardy to zone 5, tolerant of partial shade and unbothered by pests. Chinese artichoke is proof that the industrial food system's blind spots have nothing to do with quality. This is a gourmet ingredient that's easier to grow than lettuce. The only thing it can't do is survive a truck ride. If you don't need it to, you win. 7 roots. Every single one of them ignored by the same supply chain that convinced you iceberg lettuce and russet Burbanks were the pinnacle of produce. They're not bad crops, they're just the ones that survived the filter of industrial shipping. What you've seen today is what lives on the other side of that filter. Higher yields, better nutrition, less work, more flavor. The pattern is always the same. If it bruises, if it's oddly shaped, if it doesn't stack in a box, the system forgets it exists. You don't have to. Start with one. Yacon if you want sheer volume. Groundnut if you care about building soil. Crosne if you want to eat better than a Parisian restaurant from a forgotten corner of your garden. We've gone from the surface weeds to the canopy trees to the underground roots. 3 layers of food. The mainstream ignores. If you're building a system that actually feeds you, these layers are where the real productivity hides. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper.